What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Block, the sports show presented by Around the Block Network. And we only got one headline for you today, just real quick. It actually just finished up here. We're going to talk about golf and the PGA with the RBC Canadian Open. And, it was a really big dogfight towards the end. We had three people tied with the same score going into Sunday's matchup at 11 under, but ultimately Rory McIlroy came out on top with a total of 19 under, earning about $1.5 million. Tony Finau and Justin Thomas were the other golfers right behind them. So it was a really good event and always a classic. So now I want to hand it over to our hockey unit. Let's go with the NHL playoffs with Sam.
All right, what's going on, Matt?
Not much. What's going on with you, buddy?
Just excited for the final. I mean, since the last time we spoke, we now have our Stanley Cup final set. And looking at it, in hindsight, it was probably always the most obvious final matchup. But I think the way we got here was really interesting and really unexpected.
Yeah, there were definitely a bunch of times that it looked like it could have been a different team, or it looked like the favorite was going to go down early or something like that. But that's why you have to play the games, and it makes it all very interesting watching it as a fan, and it gets you excited. But now, like you said, we have the last two. I can't wait for it to get going here.
All right, so let's talk about this matchup: Tampa Bay Lightning and Colorado Avalanche. Obviously, Tampa's looking for their three-peat. They're coming off 2 wins in a row. Just beat that Rangers team that was really quite difficult to beat. Be a lot of good teams in these playoffs. Had a really nice run, but they're coming in looking for a three-peat versus the Colorado Avalanche, who at times in this playoffs look like a super all-time team. I mean, that core just looks like it could go down as really a historic team. So, what do you think about this matchup?
It's kind of interesting when you look at these two teams because it seems to me that most of the Colorado, it's a very young, it's a speedy looking group. But then you look at Tampa, they got the veteran presence over there, it seems like. I mean, let's be honest, they've been to the Stanley Cup or going to the Stanley Cup 3 years in a row now. They know what they're doing. And it's almost like that little saying, beats timing, timing beats speed. You got to think like even though it seems like Colorado is probably the favorite to go ahead and win the cup here, you got to remember Tampa knows what it's like. They've been around, they've been in this situation. They're going to be able to take it easy or at least not have the chills throughout each and every game. Whereas Colorado, it's been a while since they've been in the final. I think they're getting ready to go here. If I'm going to pick a team, though, I'm going to go with Colorado just strictly off of their speed, their talent. That they are bottom six guys to play spectacular and get points too. It's not just their top six and guys like Cal McCarr, their defensive pairing, getting all the points. They just have really good talent overall. The only way I would say Tampa wins it is because of their goaltending going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this series could be a changing of the guard almost in this NHL year. I mean, Tampa has looked dead to rights now twice in these playoffs. When they were down 3-2 to Toronto, going back to Toronto, they looked done. When they were down 2-0 to the Rangers, I thought they would look cooked too. So looking at this, Tampa's like just a cockroach, even without
Yeah,
Brayden Point, who to me is one of their best players. I think Brayden Point is their scariest player without a doubt. And they're still managing with Stamkos having a resurgent year, Kucherov finding his form again, and of course Andrei Vasilevsky being an all-time goaltender. They are just a tough team to beat, even with their lack of depth that we thought have going in. They just find ways to win. I mean, that's a championship team without a doubt. But I think I agree with you. Colorado is just the team this year. They got upset last year, and it looks like they really learned from it, coming off that defeat against the Vegas Golden Knights in last year's playoffs. I mean, they look poised. They look veteran. They look just like an absolute juggernaut. You mentioned Cale Makar. I mean, he's one of my favorite players to watch in the whole league. he looks like just a player from the future almost on
Yeah,
defense.
and he's been getting praised throughout the league too. I mean, we've
Mhm.
even heard guys like Wayne Gretzky say he's probably the closest thing to what Bobby Orr was of this generation. And
Yeah,
I kind of agree with him. He's just a dynamic player and just makes everything look so effortless, which is very, it's enjoyable to watch. And I just think at the end of the day, though, like we were talking about, when you look at Colorado, most people have had them at least going to the Cup for the past 3 to 4 years.
hmm
It seems like it's a stepping stone, it's a work in progress. And you got to remember, Tampa did the same thing too. I mean, years ago, believe it was back in 2015 when they played the Chicago Blackhawks in the final. They at least got there. They had their guys at the time that were considered young, and like Kucherov, Victor Hedman, all those guys. Obviously, didn't come up on top that year, but now you look at them and they're going back to their third straight Stanley Cup final. I mean, it's very interesting and crazy to see. I don't remember a team being this dominant besides the Blackhawks, and the only time that happened, or when that happened, you got to remember that's like split up over years. They're consistently going to the final,
hmm
so I think it's going to be a great matchup. I think this game is going to go 7 games, to be
yeah.
honest. But I do think Colorado comes out on top easily.
Yeah. I mean, this shows. I mean, these things take time. It's so rare for a team to have a jumpstart year and make the Cup final right away. We saw that with Florida this year. They had this great, outstanding year, but these things don't happen right away, right? You have to learn in the playoffs that things change. And we saw with them, they got swept by the veteran Tampa Bay Lightning. It's a learning experience. It takes the veteran presence. And I think Colorado took their lumps last year and it got upset. And now they've learned from it. They've come back. I mean, specifically, I want to talk about Nathan McKinnon, who we thought was their rock, and he has been fantastic. But guys like Nazem Kadri, I mean,
Yeah.
how do they make these guys work? Nazem Kadri was a good player in Toronto, no doubt, but he's become a point per game guy here in Colorado.
Well,
Um,
like it goes down to like I was saying, like those bottom six guys, even guys like JT Comfort, like him over the past couple of years in Colorado,
Paul
he's
Machushkin
been
also
producing tremendously, and
outstanding.
it seems like he's definitely become comfortable playing in these big time games in the playoffs. It just they match their physicality, their gameplay. It all matches with speed perfectly, and
Mhm.
it's not like they're ever having an off night. Even the games they've lost through their multiple series this year, they just. I feel like they're never actually out of it just because of all the talent that they have. It just unfortunately didn't turn out in their favor. But come on now, they just swept the Edmonton Oilers like
Yeah.
an easy breeze. And then you
Just
look at they've been off for how long now, and Tampa's got to go and be like, hey, they've been off for how many weeks? So we got to get our bodies ready.
mhm.
And I think they've just done a great job of getting to the cup. And I think they're probably the most confident group right now.
Makes sense. I mean, I'm hesitant to pick against Tampa because I've been wrong twice this year. I thought they'd lose to Toronto. I thought they'd lose to Florida. I was wrong both times. They just find ways to win. And
Yeah.
it sounds simple. It sounds like reductive, but it's true. They're just that kind of team. But I think I might regret it, but I'm picking Colorado in 6.
Yeah, I feel like every pick I've made so far on this show has not gone my way. So I might be giving Tampa their third straight Stanley Cup. You're
So,
welcome. You're welcome, Tampa, if it happens. But yeah, I'm still picking Colorado.
yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I'd love to see that core get it together. I mean, they're going to be scary for years in the future. It might start now. This dynasty, they're
Hmm.
capable. They're still so young. They still have so much talent growing. I mean, Bowen Byram was the fourth overall pick just a couple of years ago, and he's now just starting to get on the ice.
Yeah.
And these top defensemen just waiting in the wings. I mean,
Well, and it's also really good. Like we were talking about how Shane Wright and like what his role is going to be coming into the league with the Montreal Canadiens.
mhm,
It's kind of the same thing though, because they are brought into a really good organization. They're brought into a great success right from the start. They've got good size. They're able to slowly get into the league without being having all this weight on their shoulders, which I think is really good for, especially for these rookies.
Absolutely.
Um, so I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to all the placement of where you're being taken and what the management's like. So I think it's a really good. He's had a really good season over the past couple of years, and yeah, I think nothing but great success for this guy.
Yeah, it's the perfect spot for him to be. So I want to talk about our other two finalists, the semifinalists from this year. They're going to
Yeah.
eliminated, Edmonton and the Rangers. We'll start with the Rangers first. So for me, they were kind of a surprise team. I did not really believe in them, but the results speak for themselves. I mean, they made it to the conference finals and put up a
Yeah.
really good fight against this Tampa team. They're definitely ahead of schedule. So, do you think going forward, what changes do you think they need to make, if any?
It's so hard to really, diagnose what's going on in that organization right now. They obviously have a goaltender. That's without a doubt there. There's no worries there. My only concern is obviously they got some guys right now in their kid line that are going to have to get paid down the road. You're going to have to prepare for that coming up. Do have some older guys too, as well, where we don't know how many more years they have left in the tank. But overall, it seems like this team is still good enough. I think this team was good enough to win the cup this year. I really do.
Mhm.
Just after watching how they won games in series. I mean, if it was Chris Kreider and him finding ways to get the puck past the goaltender from different weird angles, or making sure he's on point when Zibanejad's trying to take a shot from the point or whatever it may be. It seems like they were actually playing together as a group. Now, I think there were times though that they kind of shot themselves in the foot, and I stated this earlier on this show before. I think the Rangers are kind of a perfect team. They're a preppy team. And when I say that, I'm meaning they need the perfect pass in their head. They
Yeah.
need it to execute so well for them to be able to shoot and take a shot and get a goal, that I think sometimes they overdo it, where they just need to do a little bit more, grind and pound. Just really get underneath, close to the goalie, and just make it, more of a physical game. He's obviously have a really good leader in Ryan Reeves there, one of my favorite guys to play just because of how physical he gets. But
True.
no, I think over time, especially some of these younger guys they have for them, I think they will develop and put a little NHL muscle on them and start getting more grindy out there when it comes to playoff series. So I, I think it's more just getting mature, especially for that younger group. But I think this team could have won the cup this year.
Yeah. The Rangers are in a very interesting position as a unit. They have a star at each position, right? They have the goaltender, they have Adam Fox on defense, and they have Artemi Panarin. Those are three of the best players in the league at each position. Great foundation, and they're all relatively young. I mean, no one's over 30 there. Great start for them. The question is, do they think their more veteran guys, can repeat the campaigns they had this year, specifically Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider, right?
Mhm.
Zibanejad, I believe in. I think he's a star or close to it. Kreider, I've been very critical of Chris Kreider. I think this might have been an aberration 50-goal season. I wouldn't bank on it going forward. And I think they have to make a choice, right? Do they stick with this core that's in their prime now, or do they wait for guys like Lafreniere and Kako to get out and get ready and be at the level that they could potentially be at when they were drafted? Because they're nowhere near that level now. So do they wait for them, or do they stick with the foundation they have now?
Yeah, it's a toss up, and especially for how well they did. You tend to look at this team and try and not get too negative on them and be like, hey, this is what they need to do going forward. I agree with the whole Chris Kreider thing. I don't think he's going to repeat what he did this past season. But I will say, when it comes to playoff time, it's so hard to judge on how each player will perform. You look at a guy in like Corey Perry too. Like obviously when Tampa Bay brought him in, they're not expecting a lot from him through the regular season. This is our playoff guy. He's got veteran presence. And, he may be an older guy, but at least every time he's on the ice, he will make it like it's his last because he just understands the game so much. So that's where I'm at with Chris Kreider because I think the man has been experienced in the playoffs for a long time in his career. I think he's had some pretty successful and thrilling goals too in some series over his years, or at least been a part of some awesome teams for sure. It's When's his contract up? Did he resign or?
I can check that for you right now.
I was gonna say because now he's gonna be up there in age. They're already paying Panarin. You're gonna have to pay Lafreniere. You're gonna have to pay Kako.
Kreider's getting paid 6.5 until 2027.
So he's still in the books for a while. Well, if that's the case, all you can do at this point is just hope that you're developing your young line, that kid line. That kid line for New York it's just fun to watch.
It is.
For this being their first time, like actually going through a major playoff run, they're only going to get better. So I think, if anything, they have enough characteristics on offense, defense. This team, like I said, I think it was good enough to win the Stanley Cup this year. If anything, the only reason why I'm going to say it didn't happen for them is Vasilevsky for Tampa, and obviously just more of a number one talent like Steven Stamkos. He took over in that game, and if you take him out of the game the other night, who knows? Maybe New York's coming out and getting that win, and we're going to Game 7. So it's so hard to judge right now. But the one team though that's interesting would be the Oilers, which I know you want to talk about.
I do.
This team, if you take Connor McDavid out of it, I don't know if they're getting by the first round.
Right.
Like, that's just how crazy Connor McDavid is. Let's be real. I know they got swept. Their goaltending was good at times, or maybe it looked flashy, especially with the bat of Alberta, but also no defense whatsoever coming in support. And really, your only offense was Kaner scoring goals off of McDavid passes, and then you get Draisaitl out there, and Nugent Hopkins and those power play units came in a couple times. But other than that, it was only McDavid. Edmonton better do something fast if they want to win a cup while they still have Connor McDavid, because I still believe as soon as his contract's up, he's out of there.
Could you imagine how that shakes up the league?
Listen, if he's really true about his craft and very on himself about his legacy, why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah.
Why would you continue to be at a place, especially if they don't meet you halfway and start getting you pieces to win? Why would you not leave? Listen, this guy, by the time he retires, should have 2 Stanley Cups. He should have 2 Stanley Cups.
At least.
At least. You look at Crosby, he's got 3 right now. And I would say he's our generation's, or this next generation's Crosby growing up. And he's a lot better. He is a lot better already. You can tell. He's got the speed. It's also fun watching him play defense. But just watching him take over the 2 series prior to this one was amazing. But what happened in this series? They just ran into a juggernaut, and Connor can't do it all. He can't do it all. So it's so hard to watch. Fun to watch, I will say, though, just for how much he did in those 4 games. But Edmonton's got to wake up and do something. If they don't, I guarantee as soon as his contract's up, he is out of there.
Yeah, they're in an impossible position, I think, as a franchise, because Connor McDavid took over that Battle of Alberta series like I've never seen another player do. He destroyed a flame that was really good. So they're in a tough position, I think, because where are you going to get a goaltender? what team is giving up a solid goaltender? How are you going to draft a goaltender in time and develop him in time? Where do they go from here? Where do they get a defenseman, right? What assets do they have? They don't have anything, right? And we know Ken Holland he clutches onto those first round picks like they're gold.
Mm-hmm.
It's just they have to. I think they have to move on from Ken Holland, to be honest with you.
I think a change in scenery would be really good for them, especially for a team. Obviously going to the conference final, it's going to give them a lot of credibility to stay there and not get fired. But I think at the end of the day, you got to look and be like, guys, you got to the conference final. That's awesome. You know who did that for you? Connor McDavid.
Yeah,
Besides that, this team ain't doing nothing. Ain't doing nothing. And if that's the case, I mean, they got to find a way to either just really start hitting on their draftees and hoping that they can develop pretty fast and get up in the next couple of years. But other than that, I mean, you got to start possibly looking and trading some of your top guys for some more players to get around Connor. I don't know how you would acquire that at the moment, just because they're kind of in a tough situation. They're not having those top picks anymore because they're obviously in the playoffs, but they lack the defense. They lack goaltending. It's so hard to really get just those pieces, especially at an age where they're ready to perform now and be on a level like Connor McDavid. So it's a little unfortunate to see, one of the face of the NHL right now still struggle to get at least one win in a conference final series. But like you said, though, man, was it special to watch him from the series against Dallas to Calgary. It was something amazing to watch. So just overall great hockey, and who doesn't love watching McJesus out there?
absolutely. We talk about them like they're doomed, but
Yeah,
they're not in a worse position ever, right? The good news is they have a coach that seems to work for them. They
yeah.
have two of the best five players in the world, and they seem to have found some depth scoring with Evander Kane and Morant Nugent
Well,
Hopkins.
here's my question: is Evander Kane gonna re-sign with them?
Ugh,
Or
I would
because
think
like here's the
so.
thing, like Kaner, he's gonna have to take the best deal available, like just because of the outside of hockey thing going
Sure.
on. He's gonna have to take the best deal available. So I feel like if they even want to keep him, if one team comes around and says, "Hey, we're giving him that much more," he might be like, "Hey guys, thanks for everything, but I got to do this for like
Thanks.
financial standings right now."
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it seems like that was a really good fit for them to bring in Kaner because you just know he's a guy who will at least capitalize on every opportunity that he will be given.
Yeah, he's a talented player. His problem was never on the ice. It's always been off the ice.
It's been off the ice, absolutely, and more of a physical guy too, very chippy, kind of that overall playoff player you want. And at the end of the day, though, you really have to look back though and be like, okay, at his age right now, if he wasn't playing with McDavid, what is he doing for you?
And
You have to look at every single player on this team and be
right.
like, if David's not there, is
No.
it worth it?
I mean, yes, but you're removing a franchise cornerstone, right? How many teams in the league can say you can remove their best player and the rest of the team is pretty fine? Like so, three
But
or four.
Braden Point, I mean, I think he's been their best player over the past year. I mean, obviously, statistically, it's going to be other guys, but I think Braden Point's like one of their best players. They're still making it. They're in the Stanley Cup
No,
final.
yeah, Tampa I think is more the
I mean,
exclusion.
obviously, they got depth. They have depth. I understand that.
Yeah,
But that's what the Edmonton's got to chase for. That's what they need to get. They
yeah,
need to get depth.
absolutely.
They
They
need to
need
get people who have won a cup. They need to somehow get like some of these older guys who have won cups or have at least been in cups and be like, let's get you here. Let's get you playing with our bottom six, whatever it may be, just so McDavid doesn't have to do everything.
Yeah, I mean Connor McDavid may need to enter hardcore recruiter mode to make this team work. He needs to do some LeBron 2012 type magic to pull some veterans out and pull this team, completed on defense and in net. If they do that, maybe they have a chance against Colorado in the future. Maybe.
We'll see. We'll see down the road.
All right, so I think that's going to do it for us here. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. I'm going to hand it back to Matt, who's going to send us to basketball. All right. All right, Tim, here we are.
What's up, Sam? How you doing?
Pretty good. Excited to talk basketball with you now.
NBA Finals. That's what we wait all year for.
Absolutely.
Shane, what's up, my man?
Not much. How you guys doing?
Pretty good. As someone who enjoys to see the Boston Celtics lose, I'm doing a lot better than I was a couple days ago.
I can understand. Yeah.
But we do have a final series going on, and it's been pretty damn good.
Yes.
Now, the final scores won't suggest this because these teams are going on ridiculous runs, either in the third or fourth quarter, Golden State and Boston, respectively. But really, most of these games have been really entertaining to watch. I think with the exception of Game 2, they were all really good to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, there is a man who has no finals MVPs who is making damn sure that he either walks out of this with an L or a finals MVP. But he is not going to be standing up on that stage holding the Larry O'Brien trophy by himself. He's going to be holding something else too. Stephen Curry, Wardell Stephen Curry II, is a man possessed.
Absolutely.
He's averaging pretty much 35 points a game through these finals. But more importantly, before Game 4, he was averaging about, I think it was 31.
Yeah.
And had only scored 6 points in the fourth quarter the whole series. He was essentially averaging 30 through three quarters.
It was nuts. Especially like you already mentioned it once. The third quarters for the Warriors has been wild to watch, especially. So like he's just been putting in so much work in those first three quarters.
He's been unbelievable. I have a hard time finding a fault with the other team. It's just like it's Stephen Curry, right?
No matter how good your defense is, at some point Steph is going to get his, right? And especially because his team is not as stacked as it was a few years ago, obviously, but he still has decent players around him, especially whenever Thompson's playing well and Wiggins is playing well. So and we'll talk about Draymond Green, I'm sure, but it's not obviously just Steph, but it's hard to contain Steph when you have at least a couple other people that you have to worry about a little bit, at least.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the way I see it, right, I'll ask you guys the same thing. Boston looks like the more complete team, the more well-rounded team in this, but Stephen Curry has been such an equalizer for this series. If Stephen Curry pulls this off, do we think of him as a top 5 NBA player?
Currently?
Ever?
No.
That would be,
ever no. But
here's the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
It would be 4 finals wins, 2 of which were he was the best player, and 2 of those wins now would be kind of upsets, really. I mean, 2015, Cleveland should have probably won that. I know there were injuries, but it was a LeBron team that he beats. And now this 2021 or 2022 finals, this would be an upset if Golden State won.
Yeah, because
this year especially.
Mm-hmm.
Boston's taken down some heavy hitters along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, they've been they've taken down the heavy hitters, and then the supporting casts have been hurt. But I mean, you walk through Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Giannis, Drew Holiday, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo to get to the NBA Finals. I mean, regardless, I know the Middleton thing and the Tyler Hero thing. And I know Jimmy had an off 2 games because of the knee or whatever. But I mean, they went through last year's NBA champion, the Eastern Conference champion from the year before that, and I think the Nets were either preseason title favorites or in second place behind the Lakers.
They had Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. That was not a light team they swept.
Yeah, it's as much as they have their issues and they kind of settled for getting the trade from Harden there and everything like that with Simmons. Like, it would have been nice to have him, obviously, to some degree, but that was still a team with 2 very, very good players, obviously. That you have to
they got taken to the woodshed.
Yeah, they could do nothing. It was not even a contest.
Their defense has been otherwise.
If it wasn't for Bruce Brown, Boston might have won 3 games by 20 points.
Yeah, and that's the funny part is he's probably their at least second best player in the series, if not one of the best players.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But there's another good player who needs to be talked about, and he needs to be held accountable, and his name is Jason Tatum.
Yes.
Yeah.
34% shooting through 4 games. And you want to know the best part? He just keeps taking more shots per game.
It's just, he's pressing, right?
Here we go.
It's
game
that's the
1.
problem.
Game 1, he took 17 shots.
Right.
Game 2, he took 19. And by the way, in game 2, I don't think he played more than 2 minutes of the fourth quarter.
I don't think so, no.
Game 3, he took 23 shots. Game 4, he took 23 shots. And that was with, by the way, he shot the ball maybe twice in the fourth quarter. He essentially gave up on offense.
Yeah.
Which I'm happy that he's because in the previous series, I want to say it was game 3, he was really struggling. And in the fourth quarter, when he went out for that 2 minutes with the shoulder, Boston outscored Miami by 6 points in the 2 minutes he was gone. And then he came back in and he started pressing again. Am I happy he's giving up the ball more? Assist numbers are higher through this series than they were last series. They came down a little bit because in game 2, he really didn't pass the damn ball.
Right.
But he just can't put the ball in the bucket outside of, believe it or not, the three-point shot. That's what's falling for him right now. He's hitting 3 or 4 threes, nothing but net. They look beautiful. And then when he gets switched on to Steph, he'll take him to the basket. And then everything else, it's not even close. He's really struggling from the middle area, which Boston, analytic heavy team, they can care less about the mid-range. But in the NBA Finals, it kind of goes out the window. You got to take the buckets as you can get them.
Exactly. Yeah.
As we saw, I believe some of these games have been a little low scoring, not crazy low scoring because these are two great offensive teams.
Yeah, but nothing spectacular though either, really. Yeah. But Tatum's pressing, like you said, and you can tell, as good of a player as he is, and he wants to be the guy for this team, right? And he is obviously to a certain degree. But there does come a point when the shot's just not falling, and you need to rely on your other players, right? We know what Jaylen Brown's capable of offensively. Even Smart occasionally will get hot. He's not an offensive threat by any means in terms of regular score, but he can put the ball in the baskets occasionally. Horford's been great at stretches in this playoffs as well. He has guys that he can rely on to kind of have that burden while he figures out what am I best doing right now. Am I going to just be taking threes because that's what's falling for me? Do I want to focus on defense more? Do I want to try to help with Steph even more than I have been? He needs to figure out what's best for him to be doing when he is in these cold stretches to kind of keep things moving along.
Yeah. Tatum's,
you know what's my bad. You can go.
Okay. Now, Tatum's sort of an interesting player because, he's the lead guy on this offense with a lot of good other players, but he's the main guy. And the offense he's leading is so-so, He's only 23 years old, so obviously there's still room to grow for him. But I think maybe at this stage, our expectations may be a bit too high for Tatum as a lead guy. He might not be Kevin Durant yet. Maybe at this stage, he's more Carmelo Anthony, Maybe he's obviously better defensively, but I don't know if he's right now the finals MVP level scorer and facilitator offensively that we maybe think he's ready to be.
You know what I think it is? When a team goes to the finals, we want to create so many narratives. Yeah. Right? We want to make it this carry job. The Celtics are a really good team. They have a great roster.
It's a team.
Right? This has not been a carry job. Robert Williams is playing on one knee and has easily been their third best player the entire playoffs.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Al Horford's hitting threes like crazy. Derek White's been a great pickup. Peyton Pritchard, when he gets hot, it's incredibly annoying because he likes to pull up 30.
Yeah, he's a good guy for that for sure.
I think the biggest problem with Boston right now. So this is my final thing before we get into looking ahead for the next 2 to 3 games. They're a good team, top to bottom. They are probably roster wise top 2, top 1 in the league.
Yeah. They got 9 great guys.
Yeah, and I know Ime Udoka is a good coach.
Yeah, he is.
But I think where he's lacking right now, and I think he did a great job in Game 3 when he told them, "When are you guys going to stop playing like assholes?"
Right.
Boston plays down to their competition all the time. Let's be real. I'm a Miami Heat fan. That offense is disgusting. It's horrible. Really, that is a defensive team, and then when the playoffs come around, they get willed by Jimmy Butler. That's happened 3 years in a row. And last year he was exhausted from the bubble run and the short off season. They got swept. They got taken to the barn by Milwaukee for 3 games after that.
Wasn't even close. Yeah.
Milwaukee didn't have Middleton. And their offense is essentially Giannis and Middleton and then shooters around them. And their shooters weren't hitting anything for pretty much 5 out of the 7 games.
Yeah.
And then the Nets are a disgrace to basketball.
Yeah.
Steve Nash is a phenomenal player, MVP, Hall of Famer. That man can't coach worth his life.
Cannot coach.
It was a mistake. Like, I understand, like, they want to be the flashy team. They're trying to make a name for themselves. Like, this is not a team you hand to a guy who has never done it. That was a bad decision by them. Well,
Yeah.
we'll not focus on that.
Boston's a great team. They've played down to their competition in force because the Warriors are also a great team, but they're not playing like one. Like, their names are really good, but Draymond Green is not 2016 Draymond Green. Klay Thompson's had 2 devastating injuries.
Yeah.
Jordan Poole might be a regular season guy. And, like, your supporting cast now is like Kevon Looney and Andrew Wiggins, who have been the second and third best players for most of the series outside of the one game where Klay got hot.
Mm-hmm.
They play down to their competition, Boston does, and they've done it in every series except the Brooklyn series. They are so concerned with the officiating. The flopping is ridiculous. Marcus Smart deserves an Oscar.
Yeah, Marcus has been fantastic at doing that for his entire career, so we know
But
that.
also,
outstanding actor, really.
look, Al Horford's the leader of the team.
Oh, yeah.
But Jason Tatum's the best player, and they're going to follow you, and he is just constantly, every possession, barking at officials. And against Milwaukee, it was a big talking point because he was giving up buckets in transition because he was too busy looking back at a referee. And my third point, and I noticed this in game 1 of this series, and I don't like Boston. I'll keep real. I'm not objective.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend to do that. I don't like them. But I'm here to talk ball.
Yeah.
This is an incredibly thin-skinned team, and I don't know why. Al Horford, specifically, is the vet on this team. The man cannot have thinner skin. Draymond flexes on him in the second quarter of game 1 after an N1. He gets an N1 in the fourth quarter. He has to dramatically flex on Draymond. He was dramatically flexing on Giannis. In game 3 against Miami, he blocked a shot into the crowd and started celebrating with the crowd, down 23.
Yeah.
This is this team's problem. Ben says it all the time in terms of the flopping. This team needs to just shut up and play basketball. Yeah. They're so concerned about so many other things. I think I would say, Marcus Smart's got to be the one because he is the heart and soul. But you can't in one breath tell me to lock up and play basketball, and in the next possession, a hand goes by your face and you fly 6 feet to the ground. I think if Boston were to lock in and, like Ime Udoka said, stop playing like assholes, they would blow most teams in the league out. This is a really, really good basketball team.
And especially in a final series where most teams do not go 9 deep, like Sam mentioned earlier, like the 9 really good players on this roster that you could rely on in playoff moments. They are more balanced. They're deeper than Golden State is. They have more ways they can beat you overall, offensively and defensively at this point, especially with the way that the Warriors are playing right now outside of Steph. They should be able to handle this team at this point on a regular basis. That's just kind of what it is. Now, obviously, Steph can be kind of the equalizer that we talked about with him. But again, all it takes is Tatum or Brown having one of their elite games, and that equalizer goes away. Right? You can counter that if you have somebody who can go shot for shot with him to a certain degree. It doesn't have to be the same or the same level of impact, but it's enough because the rest of the players around you, they're better than what Steph is getting out of his team right now.
Which is really disappointing that some of the guys on Golden State, outside of Looney and Wiggins, let's give Andrew Wiggins his flowers. What a game, right? They were getting killed on the boards, so Andrew Wiggins said, I'll just high in rebounds. I'll
just be the rebounding.
And offensive rebounds, huge points in the fourth quarter there when the game was close. Andrew Wiggins, because, again, a lot of the times, because Klay's an excellent shooter, one of the greatest of all time. So I'm not going to fault his shot selection. He's Klay Thompson. He's earned the right to take those shots.
Sure.
But, man, there are times where he shoots it so quick. And I think if you pump fake, take a dribble, pull a defender, Jordan Poole, Nemanja Bjelica, Wiggins, even Steph, someone might be open in the corner. But, he's Klay Thompson. I'm not going to complain. He has the green light. If it was me, I would maybe take a pump fake and a dribble.
Right, yeah.
Wiggins, again, great on the boards, but he struggled with everything that wasn't a layup yesterday. And I like what Jordan Poole brings them personally as a spark plug off the bench.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he's another one who he has the green light because he's an excellent scorer, but look, you have to win 4 games and you only get to lose 3. You get at most 7 chances at this. Every possession matters to me. Especially against a defense like that.
Absolutely.
All 5 starters get a all defensive team vote.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can talk about that a different day, whether all
Right,
five
but-
of them were worthy of getting a defensive team
But
vote.
there's a reason though why
There's a reason they all
there's
got
that they have that feeling to them, and they that's what they exude, right? Is the defensive energy and their ability to just cover everything up. You'd think, but
Right.
in a series like this, you still have to find weaknesses in it, and they haven't been able to do it in the same way that's just Steph has been able to do. It's been very
And
hard for them to get things going.
Yeah, to add to that point, right, we talked about them giving away games in certain ways and Udoka being, outcoached a little bit. Why are they dropping against Steph Curry? Why would you play drop against Steph Curry ever?
I thought, because we remember in game 1, Marcus Smart's mic'd up, and you could hear him say, "This isn't the Miami series." So in my mind, it was they're trying to play the same defense because the Warriors had a lot more time off. They used their rest days as rest days, not install a new defense for a team we only see twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that would go away after game 1. It did not. It wasn't as dramatic. There weren't as many lapses on defense as there were, because game 1, first quarter, Steph hit 6 threes?
That was something like it was ridiculous.
5 or 6.
Yeah. It was 5 or 6. Yeah.
So many lapses in the first quarter of game 1. I thought that would go away. They're still dropping. And you can hear Mark Jackson and it's driving Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson crazy.
Right.
They don't get it.
I mean, Mark Jackson especially knows, like, what are we doing here?
They're like, Robert Williams, you need to step up. What are you doing?
Right. I get it, right? You want Robert Williams and Al Horford in the paint, but you have to throw that out for this. Play different lineups that can switch everything. You want switching everything. You have the personnel. You cannot let Steph Curry get those looks.
The worst thing is, too, is like, if I could understand a little bit if their thought process was, all right, Steph is probably going to get his, I'd rather make sure no one else does, right? But you can't do that because Steph is capable, as we saw yesterday, of that not meaning anything. Because it's great. Like, if you keep him like 30 on like relatively efficient shooting, you can live with that if the rest of his team doesn't show up. You can't let him drop 40 plus on the shooting numbers he was putting up. It's like, you can't do it. It doesn't matter how much you're not concerned about the rest of his offense. Like, you cannot let that happen at the very least.
And just mentally what he does to your team. You could tell the guys on the court, hey, let everyone else, or don't let anyone else beat you.
Right.
If Steph wants to score 60, let him score 60. The problem is, innately as a player, when I'm on the court, I have to pay attention to Klay Thompson. But I also, I get it's Klay Thompson. That's Steph Curry. Yeah, I'm going to try to make sure he doesn't get his because he's terrifying. I mean, I don't know if you guys ever saw the video on the internet when Kevin Durant was talking about how he saw so many double teams, and then they just pointed out that it was a flat-out lie. Yeah, I mean, the defense Cleveland was playing in those finals, Steph Curry was retreating to the three-point line on a fast break without the ball, and they doubled him, giving the guy with the ball a dunk. Yeah, wide open. Like, that's what he does to you mentally. So you can put in any schematic game plan you want. Players on the court, the hoopers, they're going to say, no, there's no way we're going to let Steph Curry beat us. And then he does what he does.
We'll do it anyway.
Yeah, from a mental standpoint, he just puts so much pressure on you because, like, even if like you said, going into it, like, the plan is we're not going to not guard him, but we at least need to not let him be the only one, or let him be the only one that's going to be scoring and let everyone else try to beat us, right? Because you're more likely to be able to stop the other guys than him. But you can't just tell that to a basketball player, especially a defensive-minded team, and just then be okay with it.
The defensive player of the year.
Right. He's not going to take that. He's going to take that personally, right? Regardless of the situation. Even if he knows maybe it's the right thing. In this situation, I still don't think it is anyway, but like, it's not going to matter whether you tell him to do that or not. He's going to care about what Steph is doing, and he's not going to want him to drop 50 on him every night. So it's just too hard to ask.
So quickly, before we move to our next topic, we did spend a long time on this. Do we have predictions for the next 2 to 3 games?
Man,
I think Boston pulls it out in 7. But I think that all contingent on playing Grant Williams more and switching more.
Fair enough. I feel like, if I had to guess, I feel like Boston comes out and wins game 5. And then at that point, if they do that, I'm pretty confident that they can take it home in game 7 too. Like, I don't think it's going to go anything other than 7 games. But I wouldn't be surprised, even if Boston wins game 5, that Curry just kind of pulls it out in the last 2 games. Though.
Sure.
I think I definitely have this going 7. And I don't like predicting game sevens because so much
There's too much
nonsense
to-
can happen. I mean, as we saw in the last series,
Mhm.
was Boston up 11 with 2 minutes left, and somehow it came down to Jimmy Butler with the ball with 17 seconds left, down 2.
Yeah.
Like, again, wackiness, nonsense happens in game sevens all the time.
Mhm.
If I had to give an advantage in game 7, I think it's Golden State. They have champions. Like, Boston has playoff experience, no doubt.
Yeah.
They've got, like, hey, we matched up with LeBron James and Kyrie Irving in the situation not too long ago. Like, you're not going to, and that's my thing about the Warriors, is they've been here for so long. They've done it so many times. You're not going to surprise them. Like, again, Toronto caught them off guard with that box and one that they were playing against Steph Curry. And then by like game 3, it was, nope, Steph Curry's dropping 47. So eventually Steve Kerr is going to be able to figure it out. Look, game 3, he got out coached tremendously.
Yeah.
I mean, Udoka was like, I'm going to put 2 7-footers on the floor. If you want to keep running Andre Iguodala and Nemanja Bjelica, go ahead.
Yeah.
And they got destroyed on the boards, and it cost them the game. What happens in game 4? Kevon Looney sees, I believe, 11 more minutes than he did in game 3. Now, of course, it helped that Andrew Wiggins turned into Dennis Rodman at some point.
Yeah, he just was like, I'm going to just jump over everyone because that's who I am as an athlete. Like,
But
you're screwing.
Wiggins.
The adjustment from adding more Looney minutes, and also, got to tell Draymond, hey, if you're not playing well, I can't put you on the floor.
Yeah.
And Draymond accepting that. He's a champion, defensive player of the year, all-star, all-NBA. He doesn't want to sit down in the NBA finals, but he did it.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you earn that respect when you have all those championships. And that's why I think Golden State in a game 7 of the finals would have that advantage.
Yeah, if it goes to game 7, it's going to be hard for me not to at least assume it's the Warriors to lose.
Sure. I mean, they have home court, but we know home court just has not meant a lot these playoffs.
Not really.
Not at all.
It's too many variables going on. Yeah.
I mean, Boston's already played 2 game 7s, one on the road, one at home, won them both.
Yeah.
So our next point, it was the story of the NBA. Somehow, while the NBA Finals was going on, ESPN was talking about this. The Los Angeles Lakers have a new head coach.
Mm-hmm.
For those who don't know who Darvin Ham is, he is a former player.
Yep.
Won a championship with the 2004 Detroit Pistons. I believe they're called the Go to Work Pistons. They had a super cool name.
Something like that, yeah.
Former player, spent the last couple years in Milwaukee working for Mike Budenholzer. Very big players guy, but also because he did play for those Pistons team, you know what he's about.
Mm-hmm.
He's about toughness, physicality, defense. He preached defense like crazy in his opening press conference. And then he hired Rasheed Wallace to be an assistant coach. And a lot of people tied that to Anthony Davis. Oh, he's going to bring that dog out of Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis doesn't need that dog brought out of him. Like, he's a champion, an all-star, all-NBA caliber player. I think he made the first team a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Anthony Davis is a great basketball player. His problem has never been what happens when he's on the court. It's the fact that he's never on it.
Yeah, that's a separate issue. I honestly, for me, like, I'm just happy that it's not a retread. You know what I mean? Like, I was worried it was going to be, whether they tried to pry Doc Rivers away, or there was conversation about that, or was it going to be, like, God forbid, like a Mike D'Antoni or something like that. Like, it was something crazy. Them going this way, and with the type of guy that they're getting in Ham, where, again, he was part of that Pistons team, defensive-minded. He was part of the Hawks and Milwaukee Bucks, some of their best seasons of the past decade, obviously in the championship last year. So he brings something that none of the other guys really that were out there to get bring, I think, to this team. And they need it desperately based on what we saw from them last year.
Yeah, I mean, this was absolutely the right hire for this team. He's this is long overdue. He's been a head coach candidate for a few years now. Well deserved. My question is just, what is he going to do for this LeBron team? Right, we've seen this before. When LeBron is on the team, most of the time, LeBron is the head coach too.
Yeah.
So what is he going to do? What is he going to implement? Hopefully, he brings some toughness to this team. But how much is he changing?
I think it's essentially he's going to do the exact same. Like, he's going to preach the same principles that Frank Vogel preached. I mean, go back to those Indiana teams. That was the way he wants to play.
Yeah.
But Frank Vogel's voice just ended up getting drowned out because they weren't winning.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, it changes a little bit now that Darvin Ham was a former player. He did play in the league. He has a championship as a player. But the Lakers were at their best in this era, LeBron and AD era, playing defense. That 2020 team, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Alex Caruso, Anthony Davis healthy, all those guys. I mean, people forget about it because it was in the bubble, And the finals matchup was a little meh because no Bam, no Goran Dragic, and also it was the 5 seed, right?
Yeah.
There was no Giannis, there was no Celtics. The Nets were out that year because they were injured. But like everyone just like those guys put teams in hell.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They put Jokic and Murray, who were having a ridiculous bubble, for like half that series. Those dudes were in hell.
Yeah,
they were in prison. I mean, look at what they did. The Blazers were the hot team in the bubble after winning the play-in. Damian Lillard wins bubble MVP. I think the Blazers built 10-point leads like 3 times in that series, and it just didn't matter.
No.
Because on offense, it's going to take care of itself. I mean, come on. They have like 6 Hall of Famers, but I mean, realistically, you have 2.
Right.
Because Russell Westbrook, who knows what you're going to get from him. And also, they can commit to him all who they want. They're calling every general manager in the league trying to get Russell Westbrook out of there.
Oh, yeah.
They have to, right? Because what else can you do to make this team better other than free up the money that you'd have to pay him and also try to get some amount of value back for him, right? It just makes too much sense to do that. I think the best thing he can do right off the bat, Ham, is either help facilitate that, figure out what he wants to bring in or try to get back from that type of trade, even if it's just a couple role players or whatever it may be. Or if they can't trade him for whatever reason, then it's his priority to figure out how can I make him a winning basketball player for me? What can I do? What positions can I put him in to allow him to play winning basketball for me? That's going to be kind of what determines, if he's still on the team, how successful I think they can be.
Right.
With him being an expiring deal, you want to hunt for a team that wants to spend next offseason, trading multi-year contracts for just 1-year contract. Now, there's a big fish in the next year's free agent class named Nikola Jokic, but the problem is he's going to sign a supermax really soon.
Yes.
You have to hope. I mean, I'm trying to think who else could be. I mean, technically James Harden can be in that free agency class, but come on.
Yeah, he's not the same as James Harden.
If Kyrie accepts the player option, he'd be hitting free agency that year, correct?
Yeah.
So that's a possibility. Anyone who signs a 1-year deal this offseason or just opts into their player options this year, I believe Bradley Beal can opt in, but I don't think he's going to.
I doubt it.
So there are options in next year's free agency class. So if you can entice someone who maybe wants to spend next year, I think of Charlotte because it's clock's ticking. You have the 10
they need to make
years in a row getting destroyed in the play-in.
Yeah,
a team like Indiana, who's kind of in no man's land, but I know they're not going into a full rebuild because Rick Carlisle didn't come here for a rebuild.
No, not at all.
And at the top of my head, who else can be a free agent that year? I mean, there's always the sign and trade market with restricted free agents.
Yes, that as well. Yeah.
Right. There's always like, let's say if Bradley Beal does accept this player option, he'll be there. So there could be options. Now you have to find someone who's, looking to spend next year. Cough, cough, New York Knicks.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you get rid of that Fournier deal, it's something.
Fournier in LA would shine.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he would see just corner 3 after corner 3.
Oh, it'd be disgusting.
After corner 3.
Player.
Yeah. And I think that was the missing piece of that 2020 team. They didn't have that many shooters.
Not really, no.
Danny Green was the best shooter on the team. Like,
yeah.
J.R. Smith ended up playing rotation minutes in the playoffs because they just needed to space the floor.
So, yeah, they need somebody who's a threat at least, yeah.
And I think that was the big problem with last year's Lakers in the one that lost in the first round. Obviously, the big guys missed some time in the regular season, but they had Andre Drummond. I think DeAndre Jordan was on that team.
They just bet too much on size instead of just trying to get guys who can actually put the ball in the basket from outside 5 feet. It's just they didn't do enough of that.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Davis, after that great shooting year he had in 2020, he has to shoot at least over 30%.
Yeah, it was pretty rough this year too. So.
It's pretty bad.
They brought back Dwight Howard this year too, right? They just went all, and they had DeAndre Jordan for half the year this year.
Mm-hmm.
They went all in on size, and like the conversation that's been had is Anthony Davis needs to be playing the 5. And that's a big thing that Ham said in his press conference. He said, we're going to go 4 out, 1 in. Now, in my mind, that means 4 out, Anthony Davis.
Sure.
But it could mean 3 out with Anthony Davis being one of the other 4 and a center. And if that's the case, we can just end the Lakers championship hopes right there.
It's just one of those things where Davis, he doesn't have to play the 5 to be effective, obviously, but for a team that needs they can't go as big as they've been going, right? It just isn't going to work. They don't. If you're going to play that big, you have to have elite players to do it, not just guys who are tall. That's what they've been trying to get away with, right?
Mhm.
With guys that have either passed their prime or are good veteran role players, but they're not true starters at this point. You have to have a better approach to that if you're going to go big, and I don't think that they have the guys to do it right now.
Sure.
Yeah. So before we head to baseball, I'd like each of us to give confidence meter 1 to 10. The Los Angeles Lakers will be playing in the 2023 Western Conference Finals.
Western Conference Finals. Oh,
For me, that's like a 3. And I'm only giving it 3 because of LeBron.
I was gonna say 5, just to split it down the middle, because I could see them kind of going either direction, either real big progression or just kind of staying flat where they are. But I kind of have to say 4 if we're talking Western Conference Finals. It's just that the West is very good, and they're going to be good next year too. So,
yeah,
I'm gonna say 1. They get the 1 because of the 2 guys they have. But to me, the West has been down for the last 2-3 years. But I think the insertion of this man named Luka Doncic, dragging that god awful Mavs team to the conference finals and getting a game,
unbelievable,
getting a game on the Warriors. I mean, him alone. Similar to how LeBron was in the East for a very long time. Pencil him in for one of the 2 conference final spots 8 of the next 10 years.
Sure.
I mean, that's their floor if they get anyone just remotely better than Jalen Brunson as their number 2.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So with that, thank you guys for joining me. Had a great time. The next time we talk, the NBA Finals may be over.
Maybe. Yeah, we'll have to see.
So let's head to baseball.
Thanks, guys.
See ya. How you guys doing?
Your segment, buddy. If you want to go for it, Shane, this is all you.
Guys. So it's been a little while since we talked baseball here and just been on the show in general. So a lot of stuff has happened, including the majority of and then the end of one of the longest losing streaks we've seen in a while in baseball by a team that, if I'm not mistaken, I think the last time we were on here, I was hyping up a little bit because I felt like finally maybe
first in the division.
They had it figured out. I'm like, okay, maybe we're going to get to see 2 players in particular finally playing the playoffs after so long. And then immediately after, kind of the opposite of what the Reds did to me when I said maybe they're going to be the worst team ever, they go on a 14-game losing streak. We're talking about the Los Angeles Angels, of course. So, yeah, not my best moment so far, unfortunately, talking baseball in here. But they did finally snap that losing streak on Friday, thanks to that man right there, primarily. And really the question I have for you guys and really want to just talk about is, can they save the season? Can they rebound and still make this the first playoff appearance they've had in quite some time?
No shot. And I'll tell you why. For a long time, Mike Trout was regarded as the best player in the world. A lot of people would still say he is. The people who won't would probably say the best player in the world is Shohei Ohtani. They also have Rendon, if I'm not mistaken, from the Nationals, the championship team. All right, so let's to be conservative, they have 2 of the best 3 players on planet Earth.
Okay.
I don't think that's ever really happened in baseball ever. You can correct me.
It's very rare to.
It's incredibly rare, right?
To see anything like this. Maybe those early Seattle Mariners teams, whenever they had Griffey and one of the best hitters just ever. Period. Outside of that, there's not many scenarios you could see that they've had 2 of the 3, especially.
You look at other sports who've done this, right? Patrick Mahomes playing with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, who are at the top of their positions. Brady playing with Gronk, right? Or just Brady and Belichick, best coach, best quarterback. Aaron Rodgers with Devontae Adams. Those teams go far in the playoffs, right? Kobe and Shaq, who are probably the best 2 players on planet Earth. Incontrovertibly. They won 3 championships in a row, went to another finals.
Yeah.
This team can't make the playoffs with these 2 guys. That's organizational. That is the fish rots from the head down. This is embarrassing to a level we really don't see in sports. I mean, really, if I tell you 2 of the best 3 players on planet Earth, your floor is second round. You have to win a playoff series. You have to win the wild card. I mean, come on. Do we ever go into the playoffs and we're like, I think the Chiefs are going to be one and done this year? No, we don't.
No. It's so tough with baseball though, like, and that's where the organizational thing you mentioned comes in. That's why part of why Madden was fired during this time. Like once you get to a point where you, like you said, two of the three best players in the world, you have to at least put enough around them to support them and allow them to actually have a chance to make the playoffs, right? Because with baseball, it's harder than football, basketball. Like Mike Trout can't go up to bat more than 4 or 5 times in a game. Otani can only start every 5th game roughly, and he can hit and help you out in that way too. But again, he has the same problem Trout has, where you can't put him up to the dish every time you need a big hit. But you think with just those two, and obviously the Rendon addition, some other things, you could build up a good enough team to consistently compete for the playoffs, and it just has not happened in the last decade for them.
I mean, in terms of like what they're working with compared to the results they're getting, this may be the biggest disappointment in professional sports.
Right now, especially,
like bad teams don't have good players. Like very rarely does a bad team have good players in any sport outside of baseball, because like you said, baseball is the ultimate team game. Yes. But to have 2 of them, 3 with Rendon, I mean, and again, the division it's pretty good.
Yeah,
but it's not some like murderer's row where everyone's a title contender. Like the Astros are good. The Athletics are always the Athletics always win more games than they should.
Yes, yeah.
The Rockies have been pretty good for the last decade. They've never been like title contenders, but I'm wrong. The Rockies are in the other
I was gonna let you fix yourself.
The Mariners are good, but they don't make playoffs either.
No, they especially don't make the playoffs.
And I think the Rangers is the other one.
Yeah, Rangers are having they're going through a rebuild. So
if I'm not mistaken, they're rebuilding because they just traded Joey Gallo. Yeah, I sound like a jackass. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. No, I got you. So, but no, that's again. I definitely want to let Matt chime in here too. But like baseball is that sport that like you can have. It's possible to have 2 of the best players and still not make the playoffs, but it still shouldn't be happening. Not for a team that has the money, the backing of like they have everything they should need to be the Dodgers of the AL, right? Like they should be able to be in that same spot, and they have not been able to do it. So,
well, it's funny too because you guys are talking about how most teams too, they'll go in and spend some money when needed to, and this team obviously does, unlike other teams out there in the league that won't even spend a dime or enough to buy a $60 prescription for your Xbox Live account. Some teams out there won't even want to do that. No. But no, they do. And, as of right now, can we say, is the season over for them? No, not yet.
I don't want to say it yet.
Listen, we still have over half the season left. So let's calm down a little bit. It was a bad stretch, really bad. Don't get me wrong, but teams go through that, especially through such a long and grueling season like the MLB has each and every season. And you got to remember, too, there's going to be some other teams that are going to go through some struggles. It may not be the right team at the right time that the Angels need, but if you're just going off of based of what needs to happen for them going forward and turning it around, they just need to get back on schedule. There will be a couple of teams there that are going to drop some serious games, some serious series, and it's not going to work out for them. But I want to talk about what you think is a successful season for the Angels right now. Yes, like Tim has been saying, like you have been saying, they should be at the top, and it shouldn't even be a wonder. It shouldn't even be an extra thought. The fact that they're not there means there's something really bad going on in that management, in that organization. As of right now, I'm going to say the season is not lost until give it another 2 months. Then we'll talk and see where they're at. But this team should not be where they're at, considering the top skills they have going forward. I mean, like you said, Mike Trout. I mean, everybody knows him. Everybody knows what he's capable of. But at the end of the day, it can't all rely on him. They need to give him some players to work with. And their division's probably the easiest one, I would think. In
the American League right now, it's especially the bottom of it's not great.
Not even close. So for them making a wild card, that's what they're hunting. Or sorry, they'll be looking for their division. And I know Houston's great, especially with just their whole story from this offseason, getting guys back from injury, like we talked about on the show last time. But I mean, they're really going to have to try and catch them. I think they're going to be looking for a wild card spot though for this season. But I'm not going to say it's lost right now. It was a really bad stretch. Don't get me wrong, but it's not lost right now.
And I think it's fair to say it's not lost because right now they are 3 games out of the last wild card spot. Now that there's 3 wild card spots with the playoff format now, so they definitely still have a shot to at least get into the dance, right? But for this to be a truly successful season to me, and I think Angels fans will say this, most baseball fans will say this, they have to at least win an actual playoff series, not just a play-in game, not just the wild card game. They have to win a playoff series because that at least tells you that the core you have has more than just those 2 guys that you can build around. And then you still have to supplement things, obviously, but it gives you a better idea that you can trust the guys that are already there more than you've been able to in the past.
So believe it or not, if they do have a chance to catch the Astros, it would actually be right now because I'm looking at this from June 21st to June 30th. The Astros only play the Mets and the Yankees. They have 2 consecutive series against the New York teams, and their series right after that is against the Angels. So if the Angels can get back on track, they can do some serious damage and maybe cut this 8.5, game lead for the Astros in half or even more than that, right? They can maybe get it to within 2-3 games. They also, and you have to correct me if I'm wrong, are the White Sox any good?
Right now, not so much, no.
So they'd also play the White Sox before this big New York stretch, but that's a tough stretch. And the Astros are good, but that's tough for anybody because, the Mets and the Yankees, again, we talk about good rosters, teams that are willing to spend, they're up there with everybody, with the Dodgers, with the Angels roster. Like the Mets, every year it seems like since the new ownership has come in, they've given out 1 or 2 massive contracts every offseason.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a little difficult, though, for them to try and catch the Astros. They're just too hot of a team as of right now. And I think going forward, now is the opportunity to take advantage of it. I just don't see them really getting to that point just because I think Houston is just a very consistent ball club, at least for staying in their top position. I don't think they're a team that's going to go through a bad stretch really at any given moment of the season, or at least if they do go through one, it's going to be a very short period.
Yeah, not 14 in a row.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying anybody's going to go through 14 again this year.
Yeah, but
we thought maybe the Cincinnati Reds would be doing that, but they're surprising us a little bit. But yeah, as of right now, though, even if they go through a little down slope, Astros are too good. They're at least for the Angels catching them at the moment. I don't think it's really right now in the driver's seat for them to make a leap over. But I do think as of right now, as long as you get yourself in a position where you're getting ready to get in the wild card series, that's all that matters. If you're truly invested in your top athletes, and those are the guys that are going to bring you wins down the road, you should have all confidence in them at least performing in a wild card game. So I think that's really what they're looking at right now is just, hey, obviously we want to take over the division. We can do what we can. Houston's going to have to drop some games, though, for that to happen. And I don't think it's very likely right now.
This is an incredibly wacky sports story. Like some of those things you look back on and you're like, the Angels lost 14 games in a row with that roster?
Well, it'd be even more insane if they make the playoffs. That's
true. If you lose 14 in a row with that roster, but also make the playoffs in the same season. Do you guys remember how the world was upside down because the Chiefs were like a game under 500?
Yeah, it was the biggest story in sports.
Literally 500. They were still
like it was like, what's going on? This is like one of those things you look back on in a couple of years and you're like, wow, that's insane.
How did this team? And again, I do think it's very possible that we're going to see that story of them dropping 14 in a row and still maybe sneaking into the wild card at least. And they have the talent, right? That we know that
it's not about what time left too, though.
Exactly.
You got to remember it's a grueling season.
Yeah.
Especially for not having the full off season that they anticipated on having. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be a controversy through organizations and ball clubs here, and it's going to impact other teams besides the Angels. So that's just the name of the game. That's how it works for any sports league out there. So it's really coming down to how does your team react and rise to the occasion when that type of stuff happens. All right, Angels had 14. Let's see what they do from here on out. If they get a couple more injuries, it's not going to be great for them, but other teams are going to have that, and we'll see how they respond. So it's really all sports. It's a responsive to bad times get and how easy you take on the competition and how you really have that mindset. And like we said, it's not even halfway through the MLB season too. There's so much time left.
Absolutely. So I want to move on to a team that is having the opposite situation as the Angels right now. Matt, I know you're very excited to talk about what we're about to talk about next. The Yankees right now coming off
New York Yankees.
There it is. Coming off an 18-4 win today over the Chicago Cubs. They're obviously having the opposites of the time as the Angels have had for quite a while. The question I have for both of you, right now the Yankees are on pace to beat 116 wins record for a season, right? How long can they keep that up, and do you think there is any chance that they could eclipse 116 wins?
I mean, I'm a Yankees guy myself.
Yes, yeah, that's why I definitely want to hear from you first here.
Kind of like we were talking about with the Angels. Like, I'm hoping it happens. I don't think it's going to. Every team, no matter how great they are, they usually go through a slump. It's going to hit you when it's like least expected or when it's most expected because, hey, if they're coming close into a record like this that hasn't been done in a long, long time, usually it doesn't go our way. So, no, I think this team has the capability realistically to do it. It has to be perfect for them going through the rest of the season, though, which is very unrealistic. It's just the name of the game in this sport. Things happen, injuries happen, slumps happen. Now, they're still the best team in baseball, without a doubt by far. Do I think they'll get to the record, though? I think they have the capability. I wouldn't put my money on it, though.
I think they definitely can. Talent-wise, I mean, they're head and shoulders above everyone in that division, probably everyone else in the American League outside of, like, if you just want to do the whole Ohtani Trout thing again. But they are ridiculous talent-wise. But I do think, like, I look at their lineup, right? It's got Joey Gallo, it's got Stanton, it's got Judge, it's got Hicks, Rizzo, a lot of big hitters, bombers. I think a lineup like that, it's prone to slumps. Like, some guys are going to go through slumps eventually. It's just the law of averages. So I think because of that, this is the type of roster that's not built to win a bunch of regular season games. But once it gets to the playoffs, it's going to be very hard to beat them. I think if you had to make me pick right now, Yankees are probably going to win the AL pennant. And then we'll see what happens in the World Series. But I mean, right now they're ridiculous. But I think 116 wins is a little far-fetched because of the way their roster is built. I think this is a postseason team.
Yeah, and I think that's what it comes down to, right? It's like, as great as they've been, and they are on the pace to do it just by a little bit, it's so hard in a full 162-game season to keep up the pace that they've got, right? Same thing kind of happened with the Reds, where like they were trending towards being the worst team we've seen in a very long time. And eventually, even they had to win a couple series, had to go on some runs. Like, it doesn't matter how good or bad you are in the sport. Eventually, it's going to catch up to you that you're going to lose a couple games you shouldn't lose or win a couple games you shouldn't win. So, yeah, I wouldn't say they're going to get 116 wins. I'd be very surprised if they did. Between, we don't know if an injury might hit, and with that lineup, one or two guys being out of it, really, especially if it's one of the bigger players, could really severely impact them. I would say I'd put their over-under like 108-ish. I think is probably fair. Like, I think they're going to get up into the hundreds and maybe a little pretty far into the hundreds, but 116 is obviously a tough ask.
Yeah, and I think like we all kind of agree on here. It's just how the rest of the season pans out for them injury-wise. Like, they've been very blessed so far.
For sure.
It's kind of eye-opening, and most Yankee fans always think about it. We're just like, okay, usually there's something that goes on mid-season. Just basically any MLB fan would be like that. Something happens to their team mid-season, good or bad. And the one thing, though, is this team is definitely capable of doing it, though.
Yeah.
I don't want to, like, override that. Like, it's very true. They've got such a good talent, such a good lineup. They're able to do it if the right circumstances are in order, and that's staying healthy, going through the right circulation and batting order. I think they can do it. They can, but at the end of the day, like I said, I'm not gonna put my money on it just because it's such a long, grueling season.
For sure, yeah. Any thoughts further, Tim? I wanted to let you talk a little bit more about this if you wanted to.
I will say this though, a Yankees Mets World Series would suck for me because I'm a Dodger fan and I kind of want to see us go back.
Right.
You guys have had your time.
But Yankees Mets, I mean,
yeah, that might be the
especially
best rated
the
World Series in a
names.
long time.
Oh, say
those
goodbye to New
teams.
York City. That thing's getting burned down.
Oh yeah, no matter what happens, it's over for that. Like at that point, like.
But how much would the MLB love that?
Oh, it'd be a huge boon.
With the
Market.
way
Yeah,
they're trying
it'd
to
be
do
nice.
anything to get eyes on,
Hmm.
the last thing they need is another Tampa Bay Rays going to the World Series.
And that is mind-boggling. Like seriously, to this day, like I just can't believe you have professional sports teams that can't even like sell out like their own arenas and like
when they're good.
When
I know.
sources.
Seriously. Well, it's crazy. Like even for hockey, you watch like the Florida Panthers play all regular season. They win the President's Trophy, and you're just like they
We do
don't
not
show up
care.
at all during the entire season, and then they get like somewhat packed for the playoffs. I'm like, come on.
As a South Florida resident right now telling you we do not care.
Yeah, they're like,
But
all right,
with the Rays-
what sports in the next championship? Miami Heat. Okay, we'll see. Maybe.
What people from Tampa tell me, because I go to Florida State, almost everyone I've met is from Tampa,
Mhm.
and they say, "Well, Tropicana sucks. It's a
Well,
horrible stadium, and apparently, I don't know how the infrastructure of Tampa works. It's super out of the way to get to the stadium.
I do
like,
know that. Yeah, with Tampa,
Here,
it's
no
tough.
one goes to Marlins Park because the Marlins are just an embarrassment to sports.
Right.
But it's a relatively easy stadium to get to.
Hmm.
Apparently, in Tampa, it's such a drive, and the way getting there
It
is
is.
annoying.
It is.
It's a weird setup. Yeah.
You got the intercoastal there. It's a little hard.
Yeah, it's a
especially for
mess.
highways and bridges. It's
But I mean, if my team was good and I actually cared about the sport, I would.
well,
be there.
yeah. I mean, that's the other thing too. It's like, or just might as well build a new one. I mean, come on now. It's
Yes.
just money, right?
Yeah, that would probably be the best thing they could do. But
It's
do you
just
wanna-
money.
Yeah. Before we jump into the next last segment here, I do want to ask Matt specifically a question. Obviously, Tim, I want to get your opinion too. Do you think, assuming he stays relatively healthy, do you think Judge hits 60 home runs this year?
Oh, without a doubt.
Okay, that's
Without a
what I'm
doubt.
thinking,
No,
too.
no. I mean,
He's got what,
playing-
24 now, right?
Yeah, he's on top of his game. Honestly, watching him this year, he just looks so much more comfortable too.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's finally comfortable in his whole lineup though.
Yes.
Like it's not like the pressure's on him 24/7. You can see it in the way he's interacting in the dugout, coming up. He doesn't have that. It almost seemed like the past couple years, it seemed a little bit like too much on him himself, and not that he can't handle it, but
Right.
no, it seemed like he was a little more anxious at times. But now they're having fun. They really do love playing with each other. I think they got a solid group of guys there that they all enjoy bonding. Like you see these guys go to the Rangers game, having a couple beers and stuff because their one game got delayed or whatever it may be. No, he's on top of his game. I think he's the front runner to be MVP right now. I'm going to say that without a doubt. The only other guy I can think of, I think it would have to be Betts. But
we'll talk about them here in a minute. But,
without a doubt, yeah, he's definitely gonna get it. I would put my money on all day. He's too confident of a guy, dude. I mean, even if like teams down the stretch were trying to make a run for the playoffs and they're trying to all right, just walk the guy, whatever it may be. I mean, this guy, I think will get there, with games in hand. Like this guy is just at the top of his game right now.
I think he does hit 60, and I think it's so impressive because you look at a guy like him, a guy of his stature with his power is normally not hitting second, but the Yankees hit him second because they already have. I mean, do they still hit him second? Whenever I watch, he hits second.
Yeah,
I think he's hit primarily second this year. Yeah.
So because they have these other guys that can drive everybody home, his ability to just get on base in general is so outstanding that he's hitting second so the other guys can clean up and drive in some runs. Him hitting all these home runs, while it's really not what he's being asked to do, is unbelievable. I mean, I think he is the runaway American League MVP this year because I think the Yankees are going to win so many games.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the year of Judge, right? Like
For sure.
there was the Jeter era of the Yankees forever.
Yeah.
And we've been in the Aaron Judge era for a while, but they haven't made the World Series. I think this year they do. And I think he really punctuates himself as, like, honestly, the star of New York across every sport. I think he's going to be the face of New York sports for the next decade. Obviously, that changes if the Jets or Giants get a superstar quarterback, which maybe it's Zach Wilson, maybe it's not. We'll see in the next coming years. But I think as of right now, especially if they really hammer home on an outstanding season, this is going to be his city.
That's going to be, let me just say, it's going to be a big, big check with a lot of zeros, though.
Yeah, he's going to be able to basically,
My
hand the check
goodness. Yeah. That's
Here's what
usually,
you
when the Yankees, sign him, and we will. And you see that big number with a lot of zeros at the end of it, everybody's going to be upset, but
You think there's a chance the first number in that deal is a 4? Think it's possible?
I mean, Mike Trout got 5, right?
It's something ridiculous. 4. I think he got like 450 or something like that over 13 years though. So it's
Aaron Judge is how old?
Third? Is he 30?
No, he's
He just turned 30 last
That's what
month,
I thought,
or 2 months ago.
That's what I thought. Yeah, because he was an older rookie. So yeah, if it's 10 years, which it could be, but I doubt it. Yeah, it'd be hard to, especially because he's not going to get the 13-year crazy deals like Harper did or some of the other younger guys.
No, for real.
But yeah, that. I still think it's probably a 3 at least, and we'll see what the length is on the deal. But
I think there'll be a 4.
Could be. But as far as we're talking about MVP favorites, right? We know that Judge is the favorite in the AL right now. Despite some really good seasons from guys like Jose Ramirez, from even Trout, despite the Angels' struggles and him kind of struggling for a little bit, he's still second in OPS, which of course he is. He's always has like 1,000 OPS. Right now, it's definitely Judge's to lose. And I think it would take a significant slowdown of him and also guys like Ramirez and even maybe Rafael Devers, guys like that, to step up even more to really bridge that gap at all.
You want to take it, Tim?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I was researching real quick.
No, you're good. So I said right now, Judge clearly runaway favorite AL MVP at least, especially. We'll talk about NL in a second, but it would really take a really big slowdown from him, especially the power numbers, and also guys like Jose Ramirez and Devers really stepping their game up even more than they have to catch him at this point, I think.
He'd have to hit a considerable slump.
Yeah, for sure.
And those guys would have to be probably even better than they are right now.
Yeah. Because, Ramirez has been unbelievable, but that, you look at the Yankees team, I know it's an MVP, not best team, but, we know that's kind of how it goes in most sports is, if you're the best player already, which he's already been, plus you're on the best team, kind of hard to compete with that unless you're having an unbelievable season outside of that.
Similar to when I think Stanton won when the Marlins missed the playoffs.
Right, yeah. When
Again,
he had that 60 homer season.
60 home runs. That's the number. If you hit 60 home runs, you're probably winning MVP.
Yeah, it's hard to not give it to you, especially when, the only guy that maybe could give you a run, which, would have been Ohtani because the pitching-hitting combo, not having the same season he had last year and the Angels not having the same, success you were hoping for. So,
yeah, it's fairly simple, like we just talked about. Judge is just on fire right now. He's too good. I don't think there's even a slump that he could go through, or even if the other guys are playing lights out, they could catch him. It's just tremendous on what he does, and not to take away from the other guys, they're having fantastic seasons. Let's be real here. They're all doing everything that they can, and they're doing their part. It just happens to be that Judge is, the guy leading in home runs right now. That's essentially what's putting him over, and his getting on base is just fantastic this year.
Almost 400 OBP right now.
Exactly. Yeah. So, at the end of the day, like you guys said, it's hard not to pick him. It would honestly probably mind-boggle the entire MLB fan base if you didn't pick him at this point.
Yeah, especially in the AL. It's been pretty clear. And the thing is too, as long as he plays, I would probably have to be an actual injury, not just him playing poorly. You'd have to get hurt and miss 30, 40 games to actually not be in the driver's seat come the end of the season, I think, at this point.
Yeah, and even just from if there is no injury going forward, like I said earlier, he's got so much confidence in now. This team, they are just they work really well together. They have a really good, lineup, and there's not a lot of pressure on them really anymore. And I think that's what's making them produce so much. and I think he's just having fun with it. So
You can tell, yeah.
at the end of the day, at least regular season, Yankees will be on top. When it comes to the playoffs, obviously a different story. We'll have to see if they can rise to the occasion and really punch their ticket into a World Series. Haven't been able to do that since 2009. So
Yeah, 2009,
it's been a while. And at the end of the day, though, if you're going to have a little kickstart to getting some momentum heading into the postseason, Judge getting 60 wouldn't be wouldn't be a bad way to start it off, or potentially getting that overall win record too. Could seriously add a lot of extra spice and confidence in this team. But at the same time, that's way down the road. So let's get through the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. But so Judge kind of running away with it right now. Not as much competition. The NL though, 3 names really for me that kind of stand out right now. We got Mookie Betts from the Dodgers with that insane Dodgers lineup being the best player for them really right now. And Manny Machado as well, kind of propping up the Padres while they're hoping to get the Tatis back at some point, making them still very competitive so far. And weirdly enough, Paul Goldschmidt, who always finds a way to show up at some point on these ballots and never actually seems to win them, but he's still a fantastic player even as he's gotten older. I think all 3 of these guys right now are kind of in the same tier in terms of they both have similar, WAR right now, both a little over 3, wins above replacement right now. All great offensive seasons. Betts, I think what kind of makes him the favorite for me right now is the fact he's a fantastic defender as well. Machado is at third base, but Betts is one of the best fielders, period, in MLB, and I think that's kind of propping up his value a little bit too.
I would say don't sleep on Pete Alonso.
Yeah, the Mets are having a great season, so is he. But I feel like, especially playing first base, I still give Goldschmidt a little bit of a jump ahead of him right now as an overall hitter. So, but Alonso in that same tier too, as far as being one of the best players on one of the better teams in the NL. So,
and I think we know a lot of it. Narratives are always going to take hold when it comes to people voting. Pete Alonso first in home runs, first in RBIs in the National League. If they're still in first place without Scherzer and DeGrom when those guys come back, that's going to get him a lot of support among the voters, because it's going to be the narrative of, well, Pete Alonso, carrying the Mets while they're 2 big superstar pitchers were out, and now there's no Syndergaard also and he would have been injured too if he was there.
Yeah, unfortunately,
being honest.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's having a great season too. Paul Goldschmidt, one of the most consistent athletes the last decade.
Yeah, it's so tough with him because no one will think about it and it won't until it comes up. But he's a Hall of Fame player. He should be, but nobody's going to talk about him that way until probably 10 years after he's done. It just feels like that with him.
It's when we go back and look at the numbers years after they retire, we're like, man, Paul Goldschmidt was a dog for
right. It's insane. And the consistency of it too. That's what kind of is crazy. I mean, I think that's actually hurting him a little bit because he's had fantastic seasons, obviously, and this year especially, honestly. But to be just always so great and never necessarily the best player is kind of a curse almost, because you're never really getting the same recognition that some of the other guys that have had the huge MVP like Harper big seasons before. That's kind of hurting, I think, his name recognition for sure.
And he's been, by his standards, down the last couple years.
Right,
but right now, he's got his highest OPS since 2015 in his age 27 season, which is your athletic peak as a human. And now at 34, here he is with a 988 OPS. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so I mean, he's hard. It's definitely hard not to want to give it to him just personally, just because I know how good of a player he's always been. But right now, it seems Betts and Machado are kind of the betting favorites right now, and it's kind of swapping between them based on kind of how their teams are doing, honestly, more so than just them.
Yeah, I like Betts too. I mean, he's kind of the front runner, but the reason why he's up there is because of his defensive play.
Yeah, it's
without a doubt. But yeah, Tim, I gotta agree with you. Alonso, the old polar bear. I do like him a lot. I mean, I think he's had a really good season so far. And he has a bunch of numbers on guys like Betts.
He does.
Obviously Betts is the ultimate defensive player. You look at him, he's got Alonso, though. He's got 17 home runs, 55 RBIs right now. He's having a really good season compared to Betts, who's got 16 home runs, 39 RBIs. it's so hard to judge. Some of these players just because of what they're able to do on like all sides of the field, and you could dominate offensively only, right? It's not going to be enough though sometimes for you to win MVP. Maybe because someone else is right there or below you offensively, but overall player, they just got you by the numbers. But I really do like what he's been doing for the Mets. I think he's a tremendous kid, and just they're playing consistent baseball, kind of the same placement as Judge right now, where he's got a really good lineup. He's got a good team to work with. I think overall, we got some time going on through the last. We still got half a baseball season left. A lot can happen. Betts is the front runner right now from the NL by far, not even close. But I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Alonso makes his way on up there.
All I'm saying is the Mets still better have this damn run support when Jacob deGrom gets back, because I'm tired of seeing him give up a run and lose.
Tim. You know what's going to happen. He's going to, however many starts he has, he's going to split them down the middle, wins and losses, and they're going to score a combined 1.6 runs per start that he plays. That's what's going to happen. We know. That's the only games they're going to be bad, though, probably, because they're actually really good this year. So they're only going to be bad.
It was last season where there were multiple games that he started, and the Mets lost 1-0.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's been his whole. His win-loss record. I don't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head, but I know it's 500-ish, if not under 500, despite having unbelievable performances for his.
The heartbreaking ones were when he'd leave in the 7th or the 8th. They're up 1-0, and here comes Edwin Diaz to ruin everyone's day. Last season was last season, right? Mm-hmm. Where Edwin Diaz would just blew save after save after save.
It was
tough.
I mean,
that was tough.
The Mets, I'm hoping, just because I'm tired of teams that have, again, like we talked about the Angels earlier, teams that have all this talent when they just can't put it together. I'm really hopeful, and I'm probably going to regret it because I've said that about several teams and it hasn't worked out. But I'm really hoping that they truly are a great baseball team this year and are going to show that past the regular season and into the playoffs too. But that should wrap it up for everything with baseball this week. Definitely glad to be back with you guys. Thanks for coming on, talking baseball with me. I know Matt was certainly excited to talk baseball this week since we're talking about his Yankees. So.
Yeah, it's always a nice time when I get to talk about my New York Yankees, baby. Yeah,
absolutely. Especially
it's always fun talking with you, buddy. I like talking about all the other teams, though, and seeing how they really do persevere. And I like, trash talking some other teams. That's always fun. But, dude, I feel like, hey, did we say something nice about the Reds today?
I will. I'll say something nice.
One nice thing about the Reds.
I'll say something nice. Let me just pull up. What did they do? What did they do today?
Exceeding expectations.
They definitely exceeded my expectations. I mean, I'm just gonna say that the nice thing about them is that they made me look stupid because they're actually not the worst team of all time anymore right now.
Perfect.
There you go. That's about as good as I could say anything about them. And they won today. They beat the Cardinals today. That's a positive thing too. Good for them. The bullpen didn't lose them a game for once. There you go. Fantastic.
I'm going to say one thing about it. They didn't lose 14 in a row. Wait, no, did they?
They probably. I don't know if they actually ever hit 14. They might not have the worst. They might not have the worst stretch this year, which is. Oh, that's tough to hear.
Dude, what a crazy season we're in right now, boys. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. Love it.
All right, well, that'll do it for baseball. You guys have a great rest of your night.
See ya.